This is VSiN Final Countdown with Stormy Bonatoni and Matt Brown on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
And then there were two Eagles-Chiefs Super Bowl 57. It is upon us with the top seeds in each conference going head-to-head on February 12th with the Lombardi Trophy on the line. Going to be a ton of fun alongside my esteemed co-host, Matt Brown. I'm Stormy Bonatoni. This is a special Super Bowl big game props edition of VSiN Final Countdown from our beautiful South Point studio in Las Vegas. Matt, there are thousands of props available for the Super Bowl, and we're going to try to get into as many markets as humanly possible over the course of the next 2 hours.
Yeah, we will break these down. Listen, these lines are going to be rapidly moving as we get closer to kickoff, so multiple different ways that these things could end up when it's all said and done, but I'm super excited to dig into the menu that it would take days to get all the way through, but we'll do the best we can over the next 2 hours.
Yeah, so we'll do some of the, more common props available, passing, rushing, receiving, touchdowns, but also some of the more exotic. I know all y'all care about the Gatorade colors, the coin toss numbers. I've done a deep dive, so I will deliver those numbers, no problem. But a big part of what drives the way that we ultimately bet props for a game like this depends a lot on game script and what we expect to happen in this game. So before we get into some of these individualized markets, Matt, what is your just approach and view of how this Super Bowl is going to go?
Yeah, sitting 1.5 in favor of the Eagles, 50.5, 50 is the total. And this is like one of those games where we're seeing with that total, with that line, it looks like it's supposed to be close. It looks like we're supposed to get points from both sides in this one. So again, as we're going through these props, we are going to have to take that into consideration. How is this game in your mind going to play out? Because again, no matter what this tells us, you have to go in, you have to tell yourself a story, and then with that story, you need to tell that story in your props. That's one of the biggest things about all of this is don't tell a story in your head of how the game's going to go and then bet against your story as you continue on with the props.
Absolutely. And, fun. Obviously, I said top seeds in each of these conferences. It's a fun best on best in a lot of areas, most notably the Chiefs, the number one rated offense in the NFL this year, top scoring offense against an Eagles defense that we know has been one of the best in the NFL all year long as well. And their offense ain't no slouches. They've had a lot of success here early on. So you ready to dive into our first market?
Let's do it.
All right. Okay. The first thing we're going to look at, we got to talk quarterbacks. They are the story, no doubt. There's been a lot of attention paid to Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes and his health this postseason. So it's a matter of fact for you whether or not you want to put that into your handicap or not. So I personally don't, especially based on what we saw early on. Not early on, but what we've seen from Patrick Mahomes in critical moments when he needs to be great. He always seems to do that. His passing yards prop sitting at 290.5. It's at minus 115 for the over or the under in this one. Passing touchdowns every single game this season, he's been sitting at 2.5.
Yeah, if we take a look at this, and we talk a lot about this over the course of the next 2 hours with what do you think the game script, what do you think the game state is going to be? And if you take a look at Patrick Mahomes and the way that this offense wants to run, they are very pass heavy on early downs in neutral situations, which means if the game is within a score, they are most likely to want to lean towards passing the ball as opposed to running the ball, which is why Patrick Mahomes' number is as high as it is. This is also factoring in that it seems like his ankle is going to be okay as well. So I've run different projections as to how I think that the game could go. I have Patrick Mahomes as low as 272 yards, and that is in a more not necessarily a neutral situation for them, but more of a Chiefs kind of, let's say, owning a lead for a good majority of the game. I have it as high as 318 should they be trailing in this game and they have to pick things up. And I know this is a little bit boring, but in the kind of the median projections about 285 yards, which is kind of right on where, this number is sitting right now. I do think, though, if you believe that this game is going to play pretty tight and you believe that this Eagles team is going to be able to keep this thing pretty close, I'd be playing the over as opposed to the under on Mahomes because, again, they do tend to lean to pass more in early downs whenever the games are close.
He has gone over his prop in 12 of 19 games this season, obviously led the NFL in passing yards during the regular season. Did you know, Matt, no quarterback who has won the passing yards title has also gone on to win the Super Bowl that same season? I thought that was an interesting fact as I was going through my numbers this morning.
It is always an interesting fact whenever you can come through with something like that, Stormy. I mean, it's amazing. One of the things we will say, and this will be a theme throughout the course of the show. Listen, we are talking about, if you want to bet overs, typically better to bet them earlier. If you want to bet unders, typically better to wait a little bit. We know that the betting public wants to see things happen. They want yardage, they want touchdowns, they want everything and all of that. So again, typically we want to bet overs earlier, we want to bet unders later.
Okay, so continuing down some of these Mahomes numbers, though, interceptions. Despite having 12 picks on the season, he's thrown just one INT the last 6 games. Longest completion, sitting there 37 and a half. Has not yet hit a target over 30 yards this postseason, but saw at least one completion go over this number 12 games in the regular season. What about that passing and rushing yards? You said a little bit ago that you would go over if you had to in the passing yards category there. What about combined with the rush yards? We know he can be mobile, but do you take that ankle into account at all here?
Yeah, I'm going into this thinking that he's going to be basically 100%. I mean, it won't be 100%, but 95% of Patrick Mahomes is basically 100% of every other quarterback in the NFL. And so that's kind of how I'm handicapping this. The thing is we just don't see designed runs really from this team. So you are then at that point just kind of having to guess a little bit as to how many scrambles is he going to have, right? How many broken plays, how many different things are that? Because one of the things we probably won't get just for the threat of that ankle acting up again is very many designed runs from him.
One thing I am actually interested in, maybe a little bit more than doing the combined pass and rush yards, is just an alt over on his passing yards, because if you take the alt over 300 at DraftKings, it's even money. So don't hate that. Mahomes in his playoff career, 10-3, averaged 300.2 yards per game, 32 touchdowns, a 7 INT ratio, about 2.5 touchdowns per game, and a 106.1 passer rating. Now let's look over to the Eagles side of things, and your boy Jalen Hurts, his passing yards prop sitting at 242.5, minus 105 to the over, and minus 125 to the over. This prop, a little bit higher than his prop average during the course of the season, which was around 237.5. His actual passing yards per game have been 233.9. Went under his posted prop in 9 games. Any feel here?
Yeah, this one is going to be an under for me, but I'm going to be waiting until closer to kickoff because, as I mentioned, specifically too, one thing we have to keep in mind, there's a legalized betting state where this team is located, and when people decide that they want to come in and start betting these props, it's going to be over city on this thing, and I am going to be coming in on the under on passing yards for Jalen Hurts, and it has nothing to do with the success of the Eagles. Actually, I lean more towards the Eagles in this game, and the reason why that I would be coming in on an under for them is I think their path to victory in this game is not going to rely on Jalen Hurts having to throw for 300 yards, right? I think their path to victory in this game would be running the ball a little bit more effectively. And so through that leads me more towards an under on Jalen Hurts. I mean, listen, my baseline projections has this pretty close to where we're at right now, like at 241.7, right? Which is basically right on where this number is. But if I go with kind of how the game script for me plays out, then I'm going to be coming in on the under with Jalen Hurts, which again, I think the number drifts another few yards before kickoff.
Completion sitting at 21.5 attempts, 32.5. Both of those numbers tied for his highest in both categories all season long in the prop market. Passing touchdowns over under 1.5 TDs. And so let me try to sell you on this one. Jalen Hurts to throw a touchdown in the first quarter, yes, is plus 215. Had an NFL best 15 passing touchdowns in the first quarter. Also led the league in first quarter QBR this year. 3rd in first quarter yards and 9th in first quarter completion percentage. Thank you, ESPN Sports and Information Group, for all of those wonderful little nuggets there. But I think that's a good number for something that's happened more often than not.
Yeah, I mean, if they get into scoring, that's the other thing about this with Jalen Hurts. One thing to keep in mind here, the Chiefs defense, though they did play better over the second half of the season, were still really, really bad in the red zone. They struggled a lot keeping guys out of the end zone. And so what we're probably not going to see very often is this Eagles team get down close and have to come away and settle for a field goal, right? And we know Sirianni has been fairly aggressive too. So if we do find them in a situation where it's a 4th and short or whatever it might be, they might actually go for it, right? So you might even get an extra opportunity to get that home.
And we've talked a lot throughout the course of the season and the playoffs at how good the Eagles are just in general scoring on that opening drive and collecting points early. A league high 62 points scoring on opening drives in the regular season. And then against the 49ers and the Giants, they were able to get in the end zone. Only one of those was a passing touchdown. But I like the number at plus 215.
And not to bury the lead here, there is still the injury concern with Jalen Hurts, right?
Fair,
and so
very fair.
That is something I think it's fair for us to at least bring up. I understand it will be a long time for him to have rested this shoulder and a lot of therapy and every kind of rehab you can possibly get. But maybe this injury is just something that you can't fix with rest, right? Maybe it's something he's going to have to get an off-season procedure. They'll never tell us, Stormy. We don't have that type of information, but that's at least something to keep in the back of your mind, that there's always that lingering.
And it's a little bit challenging to handicap, too, because in the instances that we've seen Jalen Hurts in the playoffs, like, their team has had such a significant lead that he hasn't really been tested as much to see how he can react in those critical moments.
And that is like the last reason here in which I lean towards an under on a passing yards here for Jalen Hurts is one of the things this team does is really good at playing bully ball. And if they get ahead of you, they can run it down your throat, and they are okay with running it down your throat. And so I think there's multiple paths to this kind of getting home, even with an Eagles victory and him not throwing for whatever the posted yards are by the time this thing kicks off.
I think it is a little bit interesting that both of these quarterbacks dealing with some sort of an ailment. And I mean, top tier guys, both were in the MVP conversation. It, of course, looks like Patrick Mahomes is going to be the one that takes that thing home because we didn't get to see Jalen Hurts as much in those last couple games of the regular season. But really interesting stuff here. With a combined age, mind you, of 51 years and 333 days, Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts are the youngest quarterback pair to face off in a Super Bowl since Joe Montana and Dan Marino back in 1984. They are the youngest duo to do it, and I know that this one is going to be fun. We'll see who has
that game.
The if only.
Yes.
Thank you, NFL Films, for helping me remember that game. When we come back, a look at both teams' other offensive playmakers, who these guys are going to be dishing the ball out to, and what we think they can do come Super Bowl Sunday.
Here are 3 reasons ZYN is America's #1 nicotine pouch. We use food-grade ingredients. We have a wide selection of varieties. And they all come in 2 strengths. Find ZYN at a store near you.
Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
Get more from VSiN. Sign up for the VSiN Daily. You'll get an email every morning with an unfiltered take from the VSiN team that gets you ready for the betting day. Sign up for free today at VSiN.com/email. That's VSIN.com/email. Nobody gets more betting tips and plays than VSiN Pro subscribers. VSiN's hosts and guests are professional bettors. And now keeping up with their advice is easier than ever. With pro tips, VSiN experts give their best insights on air and online every hour. And only VSiN Pro subscribers get them live and can check out our running list on VSiN.com anytime. Check out the new Pro Tips section of VSiN.com and get the best of VSiN in one easy stop. VSiN, the sports betting network.
There have been a number of Super Bowl oddities over the years, and of course, with the prop market, you can bet on whether they'll happen in this year's game. I'm Ben Wilson at VSiN, the sports betting network. Let's dive into some of the crazier props on offer right now. Will a player have at least a 55-yard or more reception? That's plus 250. The longest in Super Bowl history is 85 yards when Jake Delhomme hit Muhsin Muhammad back in Super Bowl 38 for the Panthers. How about either team to have a game-winning walk-off field goal in regulation? That's plus 750. It's only happened twice and by the same kicker with the same team, Adam Vinatieri, for the Patriots in both Super Bowls 36 and 38. Some other ones as we get into the longer shots. How about a player to return a punt or kickoff for a touchdown? That's 14-1. There have been 10 all-time return kickoffs for TDs, the last in 2014 by Seattle's Percy Harvin. Meanwhile, some exotics. Non-quarterback to throw 1 or more touchdown passes, 22-1. How about an offensive lineman to score a touchdown? That's 35-1.
Check out VSiN's catalog of daily podcasts on your favorite listening platform. We've got daily podcasts like Coast to Coast Hoops with Greg Peterson, who goes through every college basketball game happening that day, and the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, where he breaks down pro football from a former NFL exec's perspective. Plus, we have weekly shows including Hardwood Handicappers with Jonathan Von Tobel, who analyzes the NBA from top to bottom. Visit VSiN.com/podcast for our full catalog of shows. VSiN, the sports betting network.
To get you ready for the big game, VSiN, the sports betting network, has a limited time offer you can't miss. You can get a 1-month VSiN Pro subscription that takes you through the big game for just $9.99. You'll get our big game betting guide, picks sent to your inbox every morning, pro betting tips, and more, all for less than $10. To become a VSiN Pro subscriber, head to vsin.com/subscribe. That's VSIN.com/subscribe.
This is VSiN's Final Countdown with Stormy Bonatoni and Matt Brown on VSiN, the sports betting network.
The big game means big plans for VSiN, the sports betting network. VSiN's going to be in the middle of all the action, broadcasting live from Radio Row in Phoenix, Arizona, with athlete and celeb interviews, plus our experts breaking down the game. You won't want to miss any of our VSiN coverage. Huddle up and watch Follow the Money. We've got the Lombardi Line, our wonderful program, VSiN Final Countdown, and VSiN Prime Time, all live from Radio Row beginning next week. For betting splits, expert picks, and big game props, head over to vsin.com. That's VSIN.com. Stormy Bonatoni and Matt Brown with you from the South Point in Las Vegas as we continue our big game props betting special. And some of the most bet props on a regular week-to-week basis also available in the Super Bowl. I don't know if you knew that. Rushing, receiving, all that good stuff. So let's get into it. Let's start on the Chiefs side of things here for receivers. No secret to anybody out there that Travis Kelce is target numero uno for Patrick Mahomes. A big game player, steps it up in the playoffs. I missed his receiving number, Matt, by a half a yard last week. He had 78. The number was sitting at 78.5. Currently, we are seeing the odds over at DraftKings at 80.5. Ooh, it's a high number. Can he get there?
This thing opened 78.5. We didn't take long for this to get where we're at right now. And listen, as we approach kickoff, this is definitely going to be one of the ones that runs for multiple different reasons. One, he's kind of the name brand guy there for the Chiefs, right? And when everybody decides they're going to come in and start betting on these props next week, Travis Kelce is going to be the guy they gravitate to, not really any of these ancillary pieces in the pass game. So that is another reason why, if you do want an over on Travis Kelce, this is a guy I will advocate for to bet early in literally as soon as you could possibly do it, because this number, it would not surprise me if by the time we get to kickoff, we're looking 5 more yards, 85, 86, 87, something like that, because everybody's going to bet the over on Travis Kelce. And listen, almost maybe rightfully so, because you do have these receivers that are all nicked up for Patrick Mahomes, and you have to think that when you get to the Super Bowl, what is Patrick Mahomes going to do? Patrick Mahomes is going to go to his guy, right? And this is one of the first bets that I put into my account was Travis Kelce over on the receiving yards. It's the only one that I think will air quote, come out as the kind of the public play that I think has a really, really good chance of getting home, because Travis Kelce is just the man. He's the guy. The volume is going to be there. It's certainly not going to be for a lack of trying, right? Like the targets and the target share are going to be going Kelce's way. Now, will they all be completed, and how much will he turn that into yardage? We shall see, but I will bet on the opportunity.
7 previous playoff games, he's had at least 90 yards, also had 10 catches on 15 targets in his last Super Bowl appearance. My only question is, because you do mention so many of those other receiving weapons got a little bit nicked up in the conference championship game, is there a fear that he's going to be paid even more attention to, that he's going to be double teamed more, that might steer you off the number? I mean, you said it's already in the account, but just curious.
Yeah, there's certainly a concern for that a little bit, but they have that weird connection. It is that unspoken thing where it's like they go to playground football, and Travis Kelce just knows exactly where to go, where Patrick Mahomes is thinking he's going to go, and then they complete a pass that we're all, sitting at home and our jaws drop, and we go, how did they possibly do that? And so I think we see a lot of that, and of course, just some really good design stuff from Andy Reid, having 2 weeks to prepare for this game, to get the ball into his guy's hands and the guy that's their biggest playmaker. So really do like Kelce props here. The other couple, if you're watching at home, Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco, that are on the screen there for the Chiefs, it is 2 guys that I do believe, if the game script kind of goes against Kansas City, we might see them get a little bit more involved in the pass game, running more routes and things like that, but nothing that I really want to bet on those guys.
What about on the ground? Any interest there with those?
Yeah, so on the rushing side of things for the Chiefs, it is fairly interesting when you look, because there's no real bell cow back here. I understand Pacheco has certainly taken control of the backfield, but They're going to give McKinney some touches. McKinnon some catches.
I like McKinney, though. That has a good reason.
Yeah, I know. They're going to give McKinnon some touches in this game for sure. And listen, there's a non-zero chance Clyde Edwards-Helaire could be active as well for this game. And even though they're not going to give him a ton of work, even if he siphons off 2 carries, 3 carries or whatever, that is pretty massive for a guy like McKinnon who's only going to get a handful of carries anyway. And now if one of those carries happens to get taken away from him, it's a pretty big deal. I think that these rushing lines are pretty close and pretty on. And honestly, I think from a betting standpoint, really, you're kind of looking at the Mahomes one going, how many times is Mahomes going to take off, right? I mean, that really truly is what you're looking at here. I'm not worried about the ankle at all. We know he is fine with running the ball. When he sees a lane, he is fine going with it. If anything, it would be looking at a Mahomes type rushing yards problem.
Okay, let's look at the Eagles receivers. Wideout numero uno, A.J. Brown with the highest numbers on the board, 72.5. Chiefs play a lot of man-to-man, so this could play to his advantage. I'm not sold on Casey's rookie-filled secondary and then being able to defend him. We know he has been quiet so far in the postseason, but during the regular season, average 88 yards per game. And the way that the games have played out here early on in the playoffs hasn't really called for a lot of, long downfield passing because they've been leading by such a significant margin.
If we take a look and kind of starting at the top of the board here with A.J. Brown, the 72.5 yards, 5.5 catches. Now, the 5.5 catches, if you want the over, is actually at plus 110. So your $100 bet is actually going to return you $110. So you're getting more money than you bet there because him getting 6 catches is the underdog in this one. And so if we take a look, I think you can get to the 73 yards without getting there with the receptions. A.J. Brown is a guy that is good with some yak. He is a guy that can be a downfield threat for them as well. I'm much more prone to bet the over if I wanted to bet an over on A.J. Brown on the yardage than I would be on the receptions because I truly believe he can get there to the 73 without having to get to the 6 catches. And so that's how I would play A.J. Brown would be on the yardage side of things as opposed to the reception side of things. Now, one of the things we definitely know with Devonta Smith is he's kind of a boomer bust type guy. He has had some massive games. He's had some really, really dud games. And where do we think that he's going to fit in this one? And Stormy, when you take a look, I mean, I think that A.J. Brown wins more than he loses here in this matchup. And so with that, I think he could be kind of a focus. And if anything, I lean towards that taking some stuff away from Devonta Smith. Like I really do. And so if anything, I'm looking for unders with him. Yeah,
last 6 games of the regular season for A.J. Brown, though, if you are targeting those overs, just to support that thought, 95 yards, 97, 103, 181, 70, 119. Wasn't exactly a murderer's row of competition, which we know has been kind of the one flack for this Eagles team coming into the Super Bowl is that their strength of schedule hasn't been what it has been for the Kansas City Chiefs. 4th easiest strength of schedule in the NFL this year, but still really significant numbers. Devonta Smith with his number there at 60.5. His final games of the regular season, 67 yards, 115, 113, 126, 64, and 102.
If you take a look at Dallas Goedert, who became a much bigger part of this offense down the stretch, sitting at 46.5 yards, 4.5 receptions, what that really does is affect Quez Watkins. So if you look at the splits when Goedert was on the field and when he was off the field with injury, Quez Watkins became a much higher targeted player, and then Goedert came back, and then Quez Watkins just became persona non grata. And so when you look here, I know a very popular bet has already been on Quez Watkins under from a yardage perspective. I know the under on the receptions even though it's only set at 1.5 receptions, has been a very popular bet as well. And the thing is what they've done now with Quez Watkins when Goedert has come back, he's kind of become their shot guy. He has very low percentage balls thrown his way. And so when you look and you're going like, dude, he only needs 2 catches. Like, he only needs 2 catches. How can I bet an under only needing 2 catches? Well, the catch rate of the balls that are thrown his way now are just so low, right? I mean, he just has low percentage catches. And so I have a pretty strong lean to the under on Quez Watkins for when it comes to catches, and certainly an under on the yardage as well. Honestly, at this point, if you are leaning towards an over on Quez Watkins from a yardage perspective, I'm pretty sure there's an alternate market where it's just his longest catch is something like 9.5 or 10.5 yards or something. You'd be better served just betting that, because it would be more likely that he gets you like 1 for 11, and then you're like sitting there wanting to kill yourself. Just go with like sit there and do the over on the longest catch for him instead.
Real quickly to round out that thought, the running backs there, something that helped me cash on Samaje Perine a week ago, over 2.5 receptions, talking about how Kansas City is not great when it comes to allowing receptions to running backs. Anything there with Kenneth Gainwell or Miles Sanders?
I think if you are thinking that this game is going to get out of hand in favor of the Chiefs, then you're going to really like Gainwell props. And I think if you believe that this game is going to be played pretty close to the vest and that this game is going to be really tight, then I think you're not liking Kenneth Gainwell props. There's a pretty big split for when games are played within one score as to the Miles Sanders snap share and things like that, as opposed to when Kenneth Gainwell's on the field. And so if you lean that direction, you probably like Kenneth Gainwell overs. If you think this game plays super, super tight, then you're probably going to be looking at Kenneth Gainwell unders.
And that works for receiving or rushing, just in terms of the touches that he's going to get. Did anything stand out to you on the rushing board?
Miles Sanders would be the one mainly for me, and more just one of the other plays that you can look at with Miles Sanders, which would be just leading the game in rushing yards in total. Again, I think the game plays a little bit closer than most people do. If that is the case, Miles Sanders is going to get the vast majority of the touches for this team, and he really will become kind of the bell cow back there, and that's kind of how I like approaching the rushing.
And remember, again, everybody, odds and lines are subject to change with all of these props as we get closer to Super Bowl Sunday. We are going to step aside. When we come back, looking at some anytime and first touchdown scores. Where's the tutty money gonna go?
The BetRivers Sportsbook app has a huge number of live streaming events every day. BetRivers Sportsbook has great offers, including a $250 match bonus on your first deposit, and all bonuses are only one-time playthrough. Amazing offers and great customer service makes BetRivers your hometown sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, playable in Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. See the BetRivers Sportsbook app for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Indiana, call 1-800-9-WITH-IT. Or in Colorado, call 1-800-522-4700. Playable in New Jersey as Play Sugar House.
Check out the VSiN store for the latest and greatest in sports betting fashion. We have more than 40 shirt designs, including our most popular one, Cash and Tickets is what it's all about. You'll find VSiN shirts and hats for any occasion, and they're all made to order, so you can find the right design, color, and size perfect just for you. You'll find VSiN hats and even VSiN coffee mugs all in our online store. Just go to VSiN.com/store and order now. That's VSiN.com/store.
This is VSiN, the sports betting network. We are a network of sports betting analysts, writers, hosts, and handicappers here to make you a more confident bettor. We broadcast live from Las Vegas, the sports betting capital of the world, every day to provide you with sports betting insight and analysis you can't find anywhere else. Our shows can be heard live on streaming platforms and radio stations all across the country. VSiN.com has the latest in sports betting news, betting splits, analysis, and picks. We have over a dozen daily and weekly podcasts to help you as a sports bettor. If you become a VSiN Pro subscriber, you'll have access to our 24/7 video stream, betting guides ahead of every season and major event, picks sent to your inbox every morning, and so much more. To learn more, head to VSiN.com and see all that VSiN has to offer. That's VSIN.com.
I'm Ben Wilson at VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, with a look at some early quarterback props for the Super Bowl between the Chiefs and Eagles. Starting with the touchdown passes, Jalen Hurts and Patrick Mahomes are each set at 1.5 with slightly differing juice. Hurts at -125 to go under, while Patrick Mahomes is heavily favored to go over his 1.5 at -215. Where it gets interesting is in the passing yardage prop. Hurts at 242.5. If you look at the first two playoff games for Philadelphia, Hurts wasn't even close to any of those numbers. He was at 154 in Game 1 against the Giants, 121 last week against San Francisco, yet he still has a number in the near 250 range. While Patrick Mahomes is at 287.5, playing on a badly sprained right ankle. He went over 300 yards last week and over all sorts of prop numbers as he led the Chiefs to an eventual come-from-behind win over Cincinnati.
For the latest odds, injury reports, and betting splits, go to VSiN.com.
Did you miss a VSiN show? We have multiple daily and weekly podcasts to keep you up to date on all the latest sports betting action. VSiN Best Bets bringing you the highlights from our daily lineup of shows, including Follow the Money and a numbers game. Market Insights with Josh Applebaum gets you ready with the latest lines and action. Beating the Book with Gail Alexander provides the insider view on analytics-based betting strategy from professional bettors, handicappers, and sportsbook operators. Visit vsin.com/podcast today to find all of our podcast options.
Get pro-level insights into the sports betting market with VSiN's Betting Splits. See what people are betting and keep updated on how the market is reacting. Track up-to-the-minute percentage of bets placed on a matchup. Compare that to the breakdown of money spent on the same matchup to find an edge. For betting splits, live odds, line moves, and power ratings, plus game analysis, become a VSiN Pro subscriber. Head to vsin.com/subscribe.
This is VSiN's Final Countdown with Stormy Bonatoni and Matt Brown on VSiN, the sports betting network.
If you're looking for a betting edge on football's biggest game, the VSiN experts have got you covered. That's what we're here for. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber today with our introductory offer of just $9.99. VSiN Pro subscribers get access to the daily recap of top plays made from VSiN show hosts and guests. You get tools like our betting splits, deep dive betting reports, VSiN betting guides for all the biggest games of the season, where our experts break down brackets, best bets, and props. Don't miss out, though. Again, limited time offer, vsin.com/subscribe, $9.99. That's VSIN.com/subscribe. We are rolling along here with our Super Bowl prop edition of VSiN Final Countdown. And my favorite song this time of year, props. Everybody. Are you having fun yet?
It is. I like that. We got the warning even before, so it's great. I'm ready to go.
I did tell him that I was going to embarrass the program to start off this segment. But this is one of my favorite segments that we're going to do all show, because we're talking tutties, baby. Anytime touchdown, first touchdown scorer. Who's it going to be? And what's interesting for me, Matt, is the Kansas City Chiefs specifically have had 14 different players this year who have scored touchdowns. That's tied for the most in franchise history for the team, which could be a good thing and a bad thing here, that it does maybe open up a little bit more opportunity for some longer shot odds in the anytime touchdown market. But at the same time, it's the Super Bowl. So you're going to get the ball out to your weapons. How do you feel about the anytime touchdown market? Yeah,
I mean, the favorite in this market being Travis Kelce is incredibly obvious, right? I mean, the guy just
shocking.
gets,
Who would have thought?
The guy gets every single look inside the red zone. He is the favorite target of Patrick Mahomes. He gets these super high percentage little shovel passes as well. I mean, that's the other thing about Kelce that increases his likelihood of scoring so incredibly much, is they get down to like the 2-yard line and they don't even run the ball, right? They just do the little shovel pass to him and then he gets in the end zone with that. And so I get the minus 130 on Travis Kelce. I probably won't be betting a minus 130 prop from an anytime touchdown standpoint, but I completely and totally get it. I think the one that really stands out more to me, Dallas Goedert, has been, like I said, since he's come back from injury, Dallas Goedert has really become a focus for this team. And certainly with Jalen Hurts out there, he's looking Goddard's way early and often. And once they get down in the red zone, I think he does have some matchup advantages as well when he gets down there. Plus 145 of any of these shorter shot guys. I would be far more likely to bet on a Goddard at plus 145 than certainly laying any money, the minus 130, meaning I'm having to bet $130 to win 100, right? I'd much rather bet my 100 to win 145 on a guy like Dallas Goedert, who I think is, sure, a little bit longer to score a touchdown than Travis Kelce, but I don't think it's as much as maybe these odds imply.
Goddard did only have 3 touchdowns in the regular season, but he has one in the playoffs already here as well. I did lay it with Travis Kelce just because I do feel fairly confident that he's going to get in the end zone. Had a receiving touchdown in 5 straight postseason games, 3 already in the 2 games here, these playoffs. And I mean, Mahomes and Kelce have connected for 13 touchdowns together in the playoffs, second most in postseason history between a quarterback and pass catcher, second only to Brady and Gronk. So not too shabby in numbers there. As far as like some running back options here, I was initially drawn a little bit to Miles Sanders, but I kind of think, and I know it very much so depends on how this usage spreads out between Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott, the Eagles do rotate backs pretty often, but if this is a close game like we think, obviously Miles Sanders probably going to get the bulk of these touches. But I kind of liked the idea of splitting my money between Gainwell and Scott, each to have one, because if one of them hits, then you're going to be profitable in this spot at 4-1 or plus 450. Boston Scott has 4 touchdowns his last 5 games. Can he make it 5? He's only averaging about 6 touches per game in that span, but has certainly made the most of them.
Yeah, he's found a nose for the end zone. But one of the things that I did as I was researching for this one is they really do want to keep Miles Sanders on the field as long as the game is kind of game script neutral, which is basically the score being within 1 score of the game. And I don't see a scenario in which this thing kind of gets out of hand one way or the other. Now, it certainly could, but that's not how I forecast this game going. So I think Miles Sanders finds himself on the field much more than those guys right there. I don't think the opportunities really are going to be there as much. I mean, for me, I would see it more likely almost Jalen Hurts calling his own number. That being said, that one is minus 105 for him to do that than it would be even something like a Kenneth Gainwell or a Boston Scott. That brings me to the other quarterback, though, and Patrick Mahomes sitting at plus 450. The one thing we do know, like I said, if he sees a lane, he'll run. They don't do design quarterback runs very often, and I don't expect there to be some sort of design quarterback run for Patrick Mahomes to get into the end zone. But this guy is one of the best, if not the very best, at just running around and running around and running around until the defense has no idea what's going on, and then he sees that little lane, and then he'll just jump it. And so Mahomes at plus 450, I think, is at least fairly interesting from an anytime touchdown perspective, specifically, too, if you are one of the people that are backing the over in this game. You think there's going to be more points scored in this game. You think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for these teams to score. Then, of course, that increases the likelihood for Patrick Mahomes as well.
Okay, let's get into the first touchdown side of things for my instant gratification peeps out there. Our wonderful producer, Stephanie Kamershak, all year long has been compiling first touchdown data. So if you go to VSiN.com, search in first touchdown score, you're going to find this incredible tracker that for every team in the playoffs has the lowdown of who has scored first, if it's been the first touchdown for their team or the game, all of that broken down for you. And her numbers have shown both of these teams excellent at getting into the end zone first. Philly has scored in 13 of their 19 games this season. KC scoring first in 12 of their 19. Both have also scored first in each of their respective games so far this postseason. That said, her system has, in this postseason, has the team that has scored more. So in this case, it's going to be the Eagles, has won 9 of the 11 in just the team scoring first, and that is a minus 115 either side of this thing. So if you think the Eagles have had the advantage here in terms of the overall numbers, they're going to score minus 115. As far as the players go, obviously the odds are much longer for these, so casual bettors love to bet them because you can lay 10, 20 bucks down and get a significant profit. What names stand out to you?
Yeah, and if you've never bet these before, it has to be the very first touchdown of the game. So just be aware, if you have a Chief in your portfolio and the Eagles get the ball first and they go down and score, that's just those bets are losers. So just if you're not aware of how this works, it is one of the deals where the actual first scorer of the entire game. Listen, I think that this Eagles team is a truck, right? And I'm very much interested in props when it comes to them. If I was interested in an anytime touchdown with Dallas Goedert, I'm certainly interested in a first overall touchdown with Dallas Goedert at 11-1. One of the things with this Chiefs team, they've been really bad against slot receivers, and I think whenever they get down into the red zone, they'll probably just line Dallas Goedert up more as a slot receiver than opposed to being in the traditional tight end spot, because you do have those 2 studs on the outside at receiver, and then you can kind of put Goddard in there at slot and create a kind of a mismatch there with his body. And you look at the tight end position, they did give up 9 different touchdowns over the course of the season to tight ends, which was 7th most in the NFL. So I have a love affair with Dallas Goedert. Listen, I have a love affair with Dallas Goedert when it comes to scoring touchdowns in this game. And so probably at 11-1 we're getting some action from me.
And I have a love affair with Travis Kelce in this market. So we're both targeting tight ends here. It's plus 650. He's cashed this ticket for bettors in both the divisional round and the conference title game. He scored the first touchdown for the Chiefs 8 times this season, 6 of which have also been the first touchdown for the game. Jerick McKinnon at 11-1 actually has the second most opening touchdowns for the Chiefs. So that was another option out there. But your boy Patrick Mahomes, you talk about him potentially getting the end zone. Could it be first? Because back in the 2019 season when Mahomes beat my San Francisco 49ers, which we don't want to talk about. He was able to get in the end zone then.
Listen, the thing is they'd love to get him outside of the pocket, and they didn't do a ton of that with this ankle injury. We expect this ankle to be fine. So if he's being mobile and trying to create plays, like I said, specifically, like they roll him out from the 3-yard line, and he's rolling right, and then the defenders have to stay back because they can't just attack Mahomes because he does all those crazy little passes and all the stuff he does to get the ball out. So they keep staying back and guarding their guy, and then he just kind of falls into the end zone. I mean, I think that's very, very, from a 25-1 perspective, a very enticing bet.
Yeah, first quarter, 1-yard line. I can see it happening. I'm just saying. I'm trying to see if there's any other names that stood out to me. I mean, maybe Jalen Hurts, too. We talk about the mobile quarterback aspect. He's actually been the most active first touchdown scorer for Philly. Had 6 this year, being the first touchdown scorer for his team. Only 3 of those were the first of the game. But I think there's a similar possibility that you could see him scamper into the end zone.
Oh, for sure. Like I said, this is all bets are off in this one. So I expect him to run as if this was, game 2 of the season.
Yeah. We're talking first touchdowns here, but there are so many interesting markets available on DraftKings right now. In addition to just first touchdowns, you have, will the team that scores first win or lose? You can bet either side of it. You can bet team total touchdowns for the game. Both of these squads sitting at over under 2.5. The exact number of touchdowns per team. Getting even more in the minutia. What's the first offensive play going to be? Who is going to get into the red zone first? All of these different things. The list goes on and on. So I think something that's important for us to reinforce here is if you think that something can happen in the Super Bowl, there's probably a market out there available for you to bet.
Likely a market available out there. Chiefs over 2.5 touchdowns at juice to -180, +140 on the under. Eagles over 3.5 at +155, -210 if you want the under 3.5 touchdowns.
We have been all offense at this point. We're going to give defense and special teams a little love when we come back.
If you didn't catch the Lombardi line, here's what you missed.
In comes Coach Kyle Shanahan. What to do? I mean, he said, quote, "I wish we had a better opportunity yesterday, but this is about moving forward." What would you say to Kyle Shanahan?
I think, Kyle, look, I trust your instincts. You know the quarterback position better than anybody. Ask yourself the question, can we get to where we want to go with Brock Purdy playing quarterback? We may not always have this elite defense. We're going to lose some players to free agency. So we've got to make sure that we have a blue-chip player, because every team we get to the Final Four is going to have a blue-chip player at the quarterback position, or at least somebody who's going to be challenging for us. We can't always believe our defense is we're going to lose DeMeco Ryans. He's going to become the head coach of the Houston Texans. Who's going to replace him? That's your first challenge. Second challenge is who's going to play quarterback?
The Lombardi line, weekdays at noon Eastern, weekends at 10 a.m. Eastern on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
It's not only who will win the big game, but by how much in this DraftKings Super Bowl parlay set of options. I'm Ben Wilson at VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. As we take a look at the board, it's Kansas City to win by 1-6 at +350, 7-12 at +550, and by 13-18 at 9-1. While the Eagles to win by 1-6 is the favorite, +295, +475 if you want them to win by 7-12, or 8-1 to win by 13-18. The Chiefs were the masters of winning tight games. Didn't cover 11 times this year, the most by any team to make it into the Super Bowl, winning 7 games by 1-6. Meanwhile, Philadelphia's sweet spot was either 1-6 or 7-12, as 9 of their wins this season came by either 1-6 or by 7-12. There's also some exotic options. If you think the Eagles win by 19-24, you can get that at 15-1, or the Chiefs by 19-24 at 18-1. The Eagles did have 2 big blowout wins this year.
Nobody gets more betting tips and plays than VSiN Pro subscribers. VSiN's hosts and guests are professional bettors, and now keeping up with their advice is easier than ever. With pro tips, VSiN experts give their best insights on air and online every hour. And only VSiN Pro subscribers get them live and can check out our running list on VSiN.com anytime. Check out the new pro tips section of VSiN.com and get the best of VSiN in one easy stop. VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Get pro-level insights into the sports betting market with VSiN's betting splits. See what people are betting and keep updated on how the market is reacting. Track up-to-the-minute percentage of bets placed on a matchup. Compare that to the breakdown of money spent
on the same matchup to find an edge. For betting splits, live odds, line moves, and power ratings plus game analysis, become a VSiN Pro subscriber. Head to vsin.com/subscribe.
For the biggest betting event of the year, VSiN is going all in on the big game. Follow the money, the Lombardi line, VSiN Final Countdown, and VSiN Prime Time are all broadcasting from Phoenix to bring you the perspective and analysis you need to bet the biggest game of the year. Check out VSiN all week long heading into the big game and become a VSiN Pro subscriber to get our big game betting guide at vsin.com/subscribe.
To get you ready for the big game, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, has a limited time offer you can't miss. You can get a 1-month VSiN Pro subscription that takes you through the big game for just $9.99. You'll get our big game betting guide, picks sent to your inbox every morning, pro betting tips, and more, all for less than $10. To become a VSiN Pro subscriber, head to vsin.com/subscribe. That's VSIN.com/subscribe.
This is VSiN's Final Countdown with Stormy Bonatoni and Matt Brown on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to VSiN Final Countdown. This segment of the program presented by ZYN Nicotine Pouches, the surprisingly simple way to enjoy nicotine. Look, most nicotine products can be too complicated to use, don't give you the satisfaction you're looking for, but ZYN Nicotine Pouches might surprise you. ZYN's made with 6 simple ingredients and is completely tobacco leaf-free. Plus, it offers up to 1 hour of nicotine satisfaction per pouch. You can buy ZYN online or find a store near you at zyn.com. That's ZYN.com. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. And I am addicted to the prop betting markets for Super Bowl 57 ahead. We are having so much fun on this special edition of VSiN Final Countdown, focusing on all things props. And so far, it's been all things offense, Matt. It's time to turn our attention to the defensive side of the ball, give special teams a little bit of love. I know how much you love soccer, so kickers will be exciting for you to get to. But let's start talking a little bit of defense here, because we know how electric this Eagles pass rush is. 78 sacks between the regular season and postseason, third most in NFL history. First team ever with 4 players to have 12 sacks or more in a single season. So as we look at some of the numbers available for whether it's team sacks or sacks in the game, anything that stood out to you more than the rest?
I think this is a moment where we can look at something and say sometimes these heavily juiced props are the very best ones to bet. Now, they do not fit inside everybody's bankroll, and I fully understand that, but the reason you're looking at the minus 750 for both teams to record a sack is because it is so incredibly highly likely that both teams are going to record a sack. And I know it seems very, very enticing to bet the plus 550 on the no, but it is just very, very unlikely that both of these teams are not going to have at least one sack, specifically with how these defensive lines have been playing of late, and specifically with how both of these quarterbacks also play. That's another thing for us to consider, right, is if Patrick Mahomes runs around in a circle 8 times or whatever in all this and then doesn't find someone and then tries to run back to the line of scrimmage, but a guy just gets him by the shoelace and he falls down, that's a sack.
That's a sack. That's an important distinction, I think, for bettors, that's a sack. Yeah. That's not a tackle for loss. That's a sack.
And it's the same deal with Hurts, right? I mean, a guy that can create, a guy that they probably will and likely give the full-on go to try to do whatever he can, back there in the pocket and stuff. And so that's for me in this one. You look at it, it's like, all I can say is if you have the bankroll, it's probably a plus EV bet. I wouldn't say that it's for everyone, but if you have that kind of tolerance, certainly something you get in your account and feel pretty good about.
Any feel for the over under 5.5? Like, is there potential for this to get a little bit sack happy here? Because I just mentioned the Eagles number specifically, but the Chiefs offensive line 16th in pass protection. And we know, to your point about KC's pass rush, I mean, they're led by one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL, and Chris Jones.
It's no surprise that we see that the team with the most sacks is juiced to the Eagles, and it doesn't really necessarily have all that much to do with the defensive line as much as it does with just the opportunities for them to get those sacks, right? Because the more a guy drops back, the more opportunities is to sack him. And we expect, due to all the projections and everything, that Patrick Mahomes is likely to throw more passes than Jalen Hurts is in this game, and the more dropbacks, more likelihood you are to get a sack. So that makes perfect sense to me. I think that is certainly, it would be an Eagles or pass for me from that standpoint, and even more so if you are believing that the Eagles are going to win this game, or if you believe the Eagles are actually going to handle this game, then you would love the Eagles side of that, because that would mean even more pass attempts for Patrick Mahomes, right? That's even more pass attempts for Patrick Mahomes and fewer pass attempts for Jalen Hurts, because in turn, if they're winning and winning handily, they're going to be running the ball a whole lot more. So if he's not dropping back, there's fewer chances for sacks. And so everything can be correlated with a bet like that, depending on how you think the game's going to play out.
Okay, so then specific players, are you targeting Hassan Reddick? Are you who are you looking at in that market from the Eagles side of things, if you think that they're going to be the more sack happy team?
Yeah, so if we take a look, these are all at either 0.75 sacks or 0.25 sacks, because as you know, you can get a half sack. This is why people are probably going, what do you mean? What is this? 0.25, 0.7. Yeah. Yes, you can get a half sack in a game, which is why they are listed as they are. And so Chris Jones, 0.75, Josh Sweat, 0.75, Brandon Graham, 0.75. Then you get to Hassan Reddick at 0.25, Fletcher Cox also at 0.25. Now, if you look at these numbers, it is kind of highly correlated to what we were just talking about from a overall team sack perspective. Is you would be looking at Eagles players, and I'm not going to say almost exclusively, but certainly giving them a much deeper look if you believe in the fact that Patrick Mahomes is going to get sacked exponentially more times than Jalen Hurts is in this game, right? And you don't want to be looking at that. I don't like a ton of the Chiefs ones anyway, because I think it will be a more run-heavy approach from the Eagles as it is. Like, that's kind of how I feel like they want to play this game. That's kind of how I think if they control it, that's the best route for them to win in the game. So I would be leaning more towards Eagles players than I would Chiefs players.
I just can't get away from Chris Jones. And maybe
he's amazing. I mean, like, there's a reason why he's minus 110 on the over of 0.75.
I was absolutely shook that the AFC Championship was the first postseason game where he actually had a sack. He took Joe Burrow down twice in that game, had 5 quarterback hits. In 11 of his last 13 games, he's been able to get to an opposing team's quarterback, 15 and a half sacks in that time. If I had to pick somebody, I would put my money on Chris Jones minus 110 to get things done. That's just how I feel. But are you ready to talk kickers, my friend?
Of course, always ready to talk kickers.
Okay, so similar to what we have in Stacks Market, and there's various options that you can go down. Kickers, same thing, because you have field goals made, field goal yards, what the longest one is going to make, shortest one, and kicking points, who's going to do what. Obviously, our kickers in this one, Harrison Butker and Jake Elliott. So let's take a gander here. Total field goals for the game. Over-under sitting at just 3.5.
This is, for me, an underplay, but the juice now has gotten so high that I don't know if it's something that I would be very interested in.
$2 will not make you holla.
Yeah, because like I said, this is a Chiefs team that really struggles in the red zone. I mean, they give up touchdowns. If teams get down there, they score on this team. And so you're almost looking then at that point saying, like, well, how many field goals do we think the Chiefs are going to get? And is it like one from the Eagles and all that? So once we really start having to like dissect it that hard, it's something that for me, I'm just going to go ahead and pass on. I mean, if you look at the total yardage from a field goal standpoint, I think that's almost even more interesting than it is the total field goals made, because if you think that they get inside of the red zone, they're just going to be scoring touchdowns, then it would almost be like they would have to be kicking longer field goals in order for field goals to be getting kicked anyway, right? And so you'd be looking at the over on the total yardage from that standpoint. If you think that there's actually going to be 3 or 4 field goals kicked in this game, then most likely those field goals are going to be, from 35, 40, 45 yards out, at some point, at least the majority of them. And so that's how I would bet it, as opposed to kind of like the actual field goals made itself.
Both these kickers do have a leg. But it's all dependent on situations for the longest and shortest field goals. But so far this postseason, Harrison Butker has had longs of 45 and 50, did hit a 62-yarder against Buffalo earlier this season. For Elliott, in the postseason, his longs have just been 30 and 31 yards, but of the year, 56 yards. There's also props available for kicking points. So for Harrison Butker, we're sitting over under 7.5, juice minus 125 to the over. He's gone over in both games so far, accounting for 20 points. Elliott also 7.5, but his price for the over just minus 105. He had 7 points against San Francisco because he was largely on extra point duty. But I mean, that's been the situation for the Eagles at this point.
Right. So now you go and you try to decompose how their points are going to come and how many points you think they're going to score. And then you start to reverse engineer all of this. And so with Butker sitting at the 7.5, you're basically going to be needing a couple of field goals out of him, right? I mean, that's just, you're going to need 2 field goals and then 2 touchdowns, then get you there. That's the interesting kind of breakdown here from this, because I think that is far more appealing to me again than the Jake Elliott one, because I don't think that Jake Elliott is going to be having to kick as many field goals maybe as Butker would be. So over on Butker or pass, under on Elliott or pass.
Also just kind of a fun prop out there available at DraftKings. Any field goal or extra point to hit an upright, plus 450 on the yes. Obviously, this is not something that happens all the time. That's why it's minus 650 to the no, but kind of a fun plus money prop. We're going to end out this hour of the show like we always do with a VSiN pro tip. Go to VSiN.com for pro tips every hour here on the network. Great stuff, separatable from show and by sport. But for this one, I mean, we're just talking about over betting in the Super Bowl. There's so many options and opportunities to bet. Obviously, you want to have fun and get into markets, but I mean, like, don't go over your bankroll and get too crazy with some of these big long shot props.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And especially the super long shot ones are super long shot ones for a reason. Yes. So definitely be cautious with throwing it out there. That's not to say you can't have some fun bets in your account. We're all going to have fun bets in our account for the Super Bowl. You're going to get together with your friends. You want to be able to sweat different things that are going on, but do it responsibly.
Yes, as always, responsibility is key. VSiN.com, again, where you can find all of those pro tips each hour. We'll be right back.
This is VSiN Final Countdown with Stormy Bonatoni and Matt Brown on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back, everybody, to the VSiN Big Game Prop Special. Stormy Bonatoni and Matt Brown with you at our VSiN studio at the South Point in Las Vegas. Eagles and Chiefs going head-to-head in Arizona coming up on Super Bowl Sunday, February 12th. It's going to be a fun one, and we're breaking down all of the prop action, Matt.
It is. The props are going to be bet hot and heavy here in the week leading into the Super Bowl. So remember, these numbers are going to be on the move. The juice is going to be changing constantly, so something to keep an eye on. If you have a number that you really, really like, most likely you either need to hop on it, or if it's a number that you think you want to go on under, you might want to wait a little bit, but it's certainly something that's going to be moving a ton as we approach kickoff.
Now, while we, of course, love all of the more standard props, rushing, receiving touchdowns, all of that good stuff, some of the most heavily bet props of all are kind of those more unique, exotic props. I'm talking coin toss. I'm talking Gatorade bath color. So that's what we're going to get into here. And this is one of those segments that we like to call, we do the research so you don't have to. But I have some very interesting nuggets for both of these markets.
Can't wait for the research on the coin toss.
So first off, for the coin toss specifically, so many different ways that you can bet this
flip
thing
a coin.
Just to begin with.
So many different ways you can flip a coin.
The coin must be flipped first and foremost.
Yes. Yeah.
But you can bet the outcome. You can bet, so heads or tails, obviously, but which team's going to win the toss? Does the team who wins the toss also win the game? One of my fun facts, only twice actually in the last 11 years has a team who's won the toss also won the game. Most recently was 2014 when the Seahawks beat the Broncos to win it all. They won the toss with tails and won the game, but that's not something that happens particularly often. One thing I do want to make sure we give DraftKings a little shout out for is for these coin toss result and winner, even money. You're going to see a lot of sports books out there that have this at minus 105, but you're actually getting a legit 50-50 shot with DraftKings.
And just another reminder as you bet this and you start screaming at your television because you're like, I bet the winner of the coin toss. What in the world's going on? Why am I not getting paid? Remember, you can win the coin toss, but you can defer. And so there's definitely some things that can go on there as well. So just remember, you can win the coin toss. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get the ball or that you're going to whatever. So that is, in years past, I've had people screaming at the television going like, I won this. How did I'm not getting paid? Well, The reason being is because, yes, they technically won the coin toss, but then they deferred, and that's how that goes.
So do you have a general feel for heads or tails? If somebody goes to you and says heads or tails, what's your programmed answer?
I've defaulted to tails my whole life, but for absolutely no reason.
You're not in. Are you in the tails never fails crew?
I'm not superstitious on anything.
Okay.
I'm not whatever. I don't feel like tails has been better to me over the course of my life than heads. Any of that, I would just always say tails.
Tails has been better than heads historically in the Super Bowl, albeit by a thin margin. Tails 29 times to heads 27.
Wait a minute. Hold on. A 50-50 is a very slim mark. I never would have guessed
Stunning.
it.
But
Yes.
wait for this. Recent history, tails has failed in 4 of the last 5 Super Bowls, including most recently, of course, that Rams-Bengals game. But maybe that just means tails is due.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what coin they're using this year. I need to examine the coin, what artwork is going to be on both sides of the coin. So I don't have any of this. So it's hard for me to handicap without seeing the coin itself first, feeling it, making sure that it's weighted properly. One side isn't like more, heavier than the other to pull it to the ground. And so these are all things that we would need to know.
But this is just it's a fun one of those things. This is for the instant gratification crowd out there. You can get a bet in and know the result before kickoff.
You can win or lose before the game even
Yes.
starts. You can win or lose a bet before the game even starts.
And you can win or lose 2 bets immediately as the game has started, because you can also bet the opening kickoff. Will it or will it not be a touchback? Now, this is a wager that bit people in the butt last year because of these numbers, okay? Well, yes, most opening kickoffs during the regular season do result in touchbacks, about 60%. There's only been 3 instances in the last 29 Super Bowls that's happened, including last year, of course, which we saw. But a lot of the numbers say, hey, this ball gets returned. So do you think that last year was maybe a new trend or theme beginning, or was it just kind of an aberration?
I can't imagine either team is going to willfully try and let the team return the kickoff. That was a strategy there for a little bit. Bill Belichick was going in whenever they moved the kickoff and changed the kickoff rules, was having his kickers kick it to like the 1 or 2 yard line and trying to get them to return it. But then it started getting to where guys were getting out a little bit past the 25-yard line, and now they're saying, like, what are we doing anyway? Just kick it in the – and hey, also there's so much risk for injury, too, on these kickoffs where it's like it's almost like the juice isn't worth the squeeze, right? Like, just kick it out, and then you don't have to worry about any of your players getting hurt. So I cannot imagine that they wouldn't kick it out the back of the end zone if they could.
I'm just saying I'm going to put a small bet on it just because I am of the instant gratification crowd. I want that plus 140. I love that plus money honey. So I'm going to stick with the historical success that it will get returned.
Okay.
Okay?
Good.
Okay. There
Let's
is
do it.
actually an even more outlandish prop at DraftKings. It's 100-1. Will the opening kickoff be returned for a touchdown? This has happened once. It was Bears-Colts 07. Devin Hester returning that bad boy for 6. Okay. Another Super Bowl
It's not
prop.
going to happen.
Well, that's why it's 100-1.
Just letting everyone know.
That's why it's 100-1.
Yeah.
But I just want to give the people the information that they need to make an educated decision here. Another prop that has gained some steam, we talked about it off the top of the segment. Which color Gatorade will be poured on the victorious head coach? Are you ready for this data?
Listen, this is
data.
Listen, data, whichever way you want to do it. We're gonna let everybody feel a part of this. Whether you say data, whether you say data, we're gonna give it to you.
Here we go. Orange is your favorite at plus 350. This has hit 5 times over the last 13 years, 3 the last decade, including when Kansas City won this bad boy in 2020.
Okay.
So maybe a little just, things firing there. Yellow-green, 4-1. The last time this popped up, Super Bowl 52 on the Eagles. Of course, this was head coach Doug Peterson at the time. Blue also 4-1. The winner in each of the last 2 Super Bowls and 3 of the last 4 have been blue, because I would argue that cool blue is the best color. I mean, best flavor. Is it a color or a flavor? What would you? Anyways,
blue,
moving on.
And it is one of those things. So it's like you could say orange obviously is the flavor of an orange, and then you get to yellow. You could even say it's lemon lime, it's whatever. But then like blue is the flavor is blue. Yeah, it is. Like the flavor's blue. Yeah, you have no idea what the actual flavor is. Yeah,
it's one of those things.
Yeah, the blue's just
Clear or water is sitting 5-1. Interesting little factoid here. Clear or water holds the record for the most consecutive years. There's been 4 in a row runs twice now, from Super Bowls 27-30 and 39-42, but are suffering the longest drought of colors that have been poured on a coach. Are you ready for your mind to be blown?
I am. Very much so.
red, which is sitting at plus 450, red pink, red. One of the most popular Gatorade flavors in the country, fruit punch.
I feel like it's fallen out of favor though with people. I think the red has gone down in
Well,
popularity.
what I'm going to tell you, big guy, is red has never been popular with Super Bowl winners.
Yeah.
Zero.
Yeah. It's
Goose
just
egg.
I
No red. Don't do it.
I don't think the younger generation is into the fruit punch. And we got to assume Patrick Mahomes is calling the shots on this, and probably Jalen Hurts as well. You want to get your quarterback the flavor that he wants the best. And I think the younger generation is not in on the red anymore.
I think that the truth of the matter is that the strategy to this market is there is no strategy unless you have an inside man. So something that I've heard you say, which I think is fun, is let's get Colin, Patrick Mahomes, friends from high school, teammates from college. Yeah. What is this guy's favorite Gatorade? Let's do the rounds.
He has to have a favorite flavor, or at least one that he prefers. Or even if you could help us eliminate any, is there any that he hates? Like maybe he didn't have a favorite, but at least if there was any that we know he hated, we could at least eliminate those. So those would be another way to kind of go about handicapping this. I know everyone's trying to figure out what's his favorite, what can we do? But maybe we can just eliminate the ones that are horrible.
Purple has only made an appearance twice, the last time being Super Bowl 46. None is sitting there at 10-1, purple plus 750. Purple just tastes bad, but it's been used. I see it on the sideline every now and then. I hate purple. Is it grape?
Is it grape?
Is it?
I don't know. I think purple flavor has
or
also
is it like
evolved.
Purple mist.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's also evolved into like no longer grape. Yeah, it's evolved into some other name than whatever.
Why is yellow green listed as the same? Because
am
I colorblind? Yellow and green are different freaking things.
I can tell you why.
All right.
Because if they use the powder version to make the Gatorade in the big tub, depending on how much powder they put in, it can change the color because of the viscosity of the stuff that's in there. And so you have to put it yellow green because it might come out looking more green or looking more yellow depending on how much they use in the actual tub.
All right.
Even though I could get with you that maybe you could argue they're different colors. I mean, different flavors, like a lemonade flavor and a whatever they call it, kiwi or something.
Well, is the yellow flavor lemon lime? Is that what the flavor is?
Yes, yellow flavor is lemon lime.
So that's why they're listing it yellow green
for sure.
Instead of
orange obviously is just orange. Blue we've decided is not a flavor; it's just a color.
To round out this segment, I mean, we might as well keep it in the flavored things.
Purple is like mountain mist or whatever you said or whatever it is.
What's your favorite Super Bowl Sunday food? What's the go-to that you're bringing to the Super Bowl party?
I mean, listen, I'm pretty boring when it comes to food, obviously.
Oh, I thought you were going to say pretty boring, period, because I would have been like, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty boring when it comes to food. I will certainly be the guy who's like, hey, do you just want me to bring a bunch of pizzas? I'll do that. Like, do you want me to stop by and get 10 pizzas and bring them? I'll just do that. And then you can get 10 different flavors. Nobody feels left out. You can get the ones that don't have meat. You can get the ones that do. You can veggie lover stuff that people want to do that. You can get the ones that'll give you a heart attack if you eat 2 pieces. All of those things.
Maybe
you can get
I'm silly. I've never referred to
with all
pizzas as flavors.
Pizza
types.
Oh well,
pizza
they're
flavors?
different. Okay, different types.
I mean, it's accurate, but I've just never heard it.
They all have different flavor profiles. I mean, some are injected with cheese. And some are injected with double the cheese and then all the things.
I like the buffalo chicken dip that you can dip either tortilla chips or the Ritz crackers in. That kind of stuff is really good. I just like buffalo anything. So I'll be the slob kebab that's got barbecue sauce or buffalo sauce all over my hands for just down in wings and ranch. I could drink ranch. Super Bowl Sunday is for drinking ranch. I don't have many requirements for my wedding, but a ranch fountain is going to be on that list.
Ranch. So there you go.
And I do. And I will.
There you go.
Okay, we're going to step aside. Super Bowl MVP talk up next.
It's game time, baby! And you're just lying there? Watching on the couch? That's not gonna cut it. You need to get in the game with BetRivers Sportsbook. There you go. Now you're live in the action. Live in-game bets, live player props, and live instant betting.
What happened here?
Don't just watch the game. Get in the game with BetRivers Sportsbook.
If you didn't catch Follow the Money, here's what you missed.
But again, my guy Sirianni are going for it on fourth down. Yeah. Huge, twice. 4th and 1 from NFC title game now. It's a title game. 4th and 1 from his 35. How many guys go for it?
Yeah,
and he got it, led to 7 points.
And by the way, that's another non-story because it's results-based, right? If he doesn't pick up those first downs on the 2 4th-down attempts, old man screaming at the cloud in his backyard is going to be like, I can't believe this is not how you do old-school football. People would have been screaming, holy hell, if they didn't pick up those first downs. Where's the credit? I said when you tell the story of the 2023 Eagles season, you have to say that Sirianni was willing to go for it early on in 4th down in the NFC title game. So the big one was to Devontae Smith. That hurt my feelings. I had no score under plus money in the first 7.5 minutes.
Follow the money weekdays at 7 a.m. Eastern, 4 a.m. Pacific on VSiN, the sports betting network. Nobody gets more betting tips and plays than VSiN Pro subscribers. VSiN's hosts and guests are professional bettors, and now keeping up with their advice is easier than ever. With pro tips, VSiN experts give their best insights on air and online every hour. And only VSiN Pro subscribers get them live and can check out our running list on VSiN.com anytime. Check out the new pro tips section of VSiN.com and get the best of VSiN in one easy stop. VSiN, the sports betting network.
Did you miss a VSiN show? We have multiple daily and weekly podcasts to keep you up to date on all the latest sports betting action. VSiN Best Bets bring you the highlights from our daily lineup of shows, including Follow the Money and a numbers game. Market Insights with Josh Applebaum gets you ready with the latest lines and action. Beating the Book with Gail Alexander provides the insider view on analytics-based betting strategy from professional bettors, handicappers, and sportsbook operators. Visit vsin.com/podcast today to find all of our podcast options.
Get pro-level insights into the sports betting market with VSiN's Betting Splits. See what people are betting and keep updated on how the market is reacting. Track up-to-the-minute percentage of bets placed on a matchup. Compare that to the breakdown of money spent on the same matchup to find an edge. For betting splits, live odds, line moves, and power ratings plus game analysis, become a VSiN Pro subscriber. Head to vsin.com/subscribe.
This is VSiN's Final Countdown with Stormy Bonatoni and Matt Brown on VSiN, the sports betting network.
The big game means big plans for VSiN. You already know. VSiN's going to be in the middle of all the action. We're broadcasting live from Radio Row in Phoenix, Arizona ahead of the big game. We're going to have athlete, celeb interviews, plus our experts breaking down the game. Just awesome coverage you're not going to want to miss. Huddle up and watch Follow the Money, the Lombardi Line, VSiN Prime Time, and, of course, yours truly, Matt Brown and Stormy Bonatoni on VSiN Final Countdown, again, live from Radio Row next week. For betting splits, expert picks, and big game props, head to vsin.com. That's VSIN.com. And, of course, all the big game props that we are breaking down today on our prop special edition of VSiN Final Countdown, Matt. I mean, we've already gotten through a lot today, but still so much more to come, including, of course, we have to talk Super Bowl MVP. This is actually the first time in 15 years that both starting quarterbacks are listed at plus 150 or shorter. The only time that quarterbacks have had 2-1 odds or shorter at the same time was Brady and Mahomes in 2020. Jalen Hurts, the favorite, at plus 120, and Mahomes just right there, creeping along, plus 130, short behind.
It is a quarterback award. We know they want to give it to a quarterback, and unless a quarterback has a very, very pedestrian day, it's going to go to one of the two quarterbacks. And with that, if you're a Chiefs backer, we know that the money line is the most popular bet for underdogs. People don't care about the spread for whatever reason when it comes to the Super Bowl, and they just want to bet the money line. Well, it's plus 105 on the money line to back the Chiefs, but it's plus 130 to back Patrick Mahomes as Super Bowl MVP. There's a very, very, very high likelihood that if the Chiefs win this game, it's going to be on the arm and maybe even the legs, too, of Patrick Mahomes. And there's a very small chance that it's going to be any of the other players because it's just not really how the Chiefs function, right? Like I think there's an argument to be made that Jalen Hurts at plus 120 is, you'd rather just maybe lay, whatever. By the time this thing kicks off, it might be minus 115-ish, 110-ish or something like that on the Eagles money line. I would almost go that direction as opposed to Jalen Hurts because we've even seen this team have a ton of success where he's only thrown for 100 and, last week he threw for 121 yards and all those things. So for me, I think Patrick Mahomes at plus 130 would be the bet if you like the Chiefs in this game. He's going to throw he's going to throw for 250 minimum, right? And like that would be an off game for Patrick Mahomes. As we know, his prop is set at 290 yards, right? And so he's going to throw for 250. Even a 250 would be an off game for him. He'll have a couple of touchdowns.
Yeah,
and
he averaged 300 plus this season.
So it's like, I mean, if he goes for 250 plus and has a couple of touchdowns, which again would be the likely path to them winning the game, it's going to go to Mahomes. And so I would have to say, if I'm going to play that, I would be playing Mahomes. Travis Kelce, there is a small path, and the small path would be a Chiefs blowout. And Mahomes just connects with Kelce so much in the first half. Kelce has 7 or 8 catches for, nearly 100 yards and maybe a couple of touchdowns. And then in the second half, they just put it on cruise control, and it's all just run. Then there is a very unlikely path to it getting to Kelce with that game script, but that's really about it. As far as I can see, with it going to anyone other than Mahomes.
Well, that's what I was gonna, how many touchdowns do you think that he would need to have secured that? Like that's my thought.
It would need to be basically Mahomes and them are up, 17 points at half, so they're just running the ball all second half, and as part of that blowout, like I said, Kelce has between 6 and 8 catches, and it goes for nearly 100 yards, and maybe 2 of those turn into a touchdown, and then Mahomes just doesn't throw very much in the second half, and if that was the case, then they probably could justify giving it to Kelce.
The quarterbacks are certainly the names that are going to make the most sense for this award. It is a quarterback-heavy award, as you referenced, although 2 of the last 4 winners have been receivers. Cooper Kupp, of course, last year getting that win with the Rams winning the Super Bowl last year. All of the value and all of the sizable odds are going to be with the other position players with the longer shots. Is there any name or two that could be worth just a little sprinkle at the higher odds?
I mean, I think if we're looking, for me personally, if I was going to be betting anyone other than Mahomes in this market, I would probably be looking towards one of the defensive players for the Eagles. And it would be, there is a path, I think, for the Eagles to win a game without Jalen Hurts having to do very much, with the defense doing something pretty crazy. So for me, that'd be the only way that I would bet this outside of one of the quarterbacks, or again, maybe it would be like a 9/10 of a unit on Mahomes and then 1/10 on Kelce, just in case, that it played out like that. But it would be a defensive player for the Eagles for me, outside of Hurts, obviously.
There is a 150-1 on
do tell.
C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who had 6 interceptions.
I thought you were about to give me the kicker or something.
No.
Yeah.
Although that was Evan McPherson's number last year, which ended up getting shortened a significant bit because books had so much liability because he was like this just like kicker mad fiend. But no, he has 6 interceptions in the regular season, tied for the league. Can he pick off Mahomes multiple times, maybe? I don't know. Get a pick 6 action. Just trying to think outside the box.
That is
little $5 on a 150-1.
But that's the path, right? That's the path to one of those defensive guys getting it. It's going to take multiple sacks or multiple picks, and it's likely going to take either maybe the sacks one if you somehow end up with 4 sacks and a forced fumble or something, you maybe could get it. But it's one of the picks, just because of the way that the nature is for these corners. Like, it would have to be a pick 6, right? You'd have to score a touchdown. Like, even if you just had 2 naked interceptions with nothing to really show for it, it's not going to win you. Yeah, it's not going to win you.
We showed the graphic a moment ago, but quarterback as the position to win Super Bowl MVP, juiced to -650. So you have to bet $650 just to win 100 back. I honestly could say, because of who these quarterbacks are, that maybe that's not juiced high enough, because it's so likely for it to happen.
Yeah, I mean, like we said, it is a quarterback award unless they just don't go out and do anything at all. And so I get why it is what it is, but not a market in which I'm incredibly interested in. I mean, I think the only other one would be, I mean, we do have tight ends sitting there at 9-1. Kelce was only 10-1 to win it, so you actually pick up Goddard as well for just a very, very slight discount on that at 9-1. And like I said, I kind of like Goddard's matchup in this thing, and I kind of like Goddard's, potential to at least score. And now whether he's going to get enough catches or yardage, I don't know. But it's almost like, hey, you're gaining a whole extra player for only losing, the 10-1 to 9-1. So that at least could be an alternate way to look at this.
And I think that's good strategic insight for betting these props to begin with, that there are going to be a lot of better odds opportunities to bet something similar. Something that we had talked off camera about a little bit ago was Patrick Mahomes to score first, to be a first touchdown scorer, was 25-1, but 22-1 in the market to just score first for Kansas City. So you would think that that number would be much shorter, but it's not, and you're getting more opportunity for him to score. So things like that are just creative ways as you continue to go through just like the thousands of prop betting opportunities there are for the Super Bowl.
And I understand we don't want to like bet the other thing about this too is like getting that running back fullback at 12-1. And I do understand that the MVP, if you took any of the individual guys, you're going to get a bigger number than that. But with these teams having multiple different guys that get carries and stuff, like without being able to hone in on one guy that we know is going to be a bell cow, right? Like we know for sure there's going to be probably 5 different running backs get carries in this game, maybe 6 different running backs get carries in this game. So are you willing to take on winning less money by getting 12-1 here where you're getting all of those guys as opposed to saying like, oh, okay, Miles Sanders at 22-1, where what if it becomes like we said, what if it becomes a Gainwell game? What if Scott ends up weirdly scoring 3 touchdowns? Something like that. So something you can just kind of weigh with what risk you're willing to take on.
Let's take a couple minutes to look at some of the scoring specials available at DraftKings as well. Do you think this is going to be a high-scoring matchup? Because some significant markets here for teams to score 30-plus points or 40-plus points. Do you think that both teams can get a touchdown and a field goal? Do you think both teams can get a touchdown and a field goal in the first half, in both halves? So there's a lot of interesting markets here. For the plus 30 points or more, minus 140 for yes, for any team to go over 30. What did you think of that?
Yeah, so I think that this, if you look at it, you're kind of like, you kind of understand where this is, and you're back in the Chiefs, you would like the over 30, and you might even be interested in the over 40, right? I mean, it's one of those things where I don't think that your game script is the Chiefs winning like a low-scoring kind of slog of a game, right? I think that plays way more into the Eagles' favor than it does the Chiefs. And so if you're interested in this one, it would be kind of like you're a Chiefs backer on the yes side of things. And if you're on the no side of things, you'd be more kind of in the Eagles camp.
The Chiefs have scored 30 or more points 8 times this season, most recently at Vegas to end the regular season. And the Eagles have allowed 4 teams to score 30 or more on them. As far as the 40-plus point things go, Kansas City has done that 3 times. All 3, however, were in the first 7 weeks of the season, so they haven't gone to that like scoring margin late in the year. The Eagles, meanwhile, have only allowed 40-plus points 1 time at Dallas on December 24th. So just take those things into account. Still, plenty more scoring specials, interesting markets that we're going to get to, though. Here
the implied team totals for both of these teams is well under 30 points, just to kind of throw that out there. So the minus 140, you are taking on a lot of juice for an implied team total where you're about 3 points under that.
The juice is loose.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a quick timeout, but do not go anywhere. More of our prop special for the big game coming up after this.
It's game time, baby! And you're just lying there? Watching on the couch? That's not gonna cut it. You need to get in the game with BetRivers Sportsbook. There you go. Now you're live in the action. Live in-game bets, live player props, and live instant betting. Bucket to bucket!
What happened here?
Don't just watch the game. Get in the game with BetRivers Sportsbook.
Check out VSiN's catalog of daily podcasts on your favorite listening platform. We've got daily podcasts like Coast to Coast Hoops with Greg Peterson, who goes through every college basketball game happening that day, and the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, where he breaks down pro football from a former NFL exec's perspective. Plus, we have weekly shows including Hardwood Handicappers with Jonathan Von Tobel, who analyzes the NBA from top to bottom. Visit VSiN.com/podcasts for our full catalog of shows. VSiN, the sports betting network.
This is VSiN, the sports betting network. We are a network of sports betting analysts, writers, hosts, and handicappers here to make you a more confident bettor. We broadcast live from Las Vegas, the sports betting capital of the world, every day to provide you with sports betting insight and analysis you can't find anywhere else. Our shows can be heard live on streaming platforms and radio stations all across the country. VSiN.com has the latest in sports betting news, betting splits, analysis, and picks. We have over a dozen daily and weekly podcasts to help you as a sports bettor. If you become a VSiN Pro subscriber, you'll have access to our 24/7 video stream, betting guides ahead of every season and major event, picks sent to your inbox every morning, and so much more. To learn more, head to VSiN.com and see all that VSiN has to offer. That's VSIN.com.
31 of 56 Super Bowl MVPs all time have been quarterbacks, so it's only natural that the top two on the odds board for Super Bowl 57 MVP are the two quarterbacks. I'm Ben Wilson at VSiN, the sports betting network, with Jalen Hurts, the favorite, at plus 110, followed closely by Patrick Mahomes of Kansas City at plus 130. It matches the current betting line, with the Eagles slightly favored over the Chiefs, as those 31 different MVPs were quarterbacks. Of course, 5 of those were Tom Brady. However, you should keep in mind 2 of the last 4 MVPs were receivers, so if you want to go further down the odds board, look towards the top targets for both teams. Travis Kelce of Kansas City is at 10-1, has gone over his receiving yards prop each of the first 2 playoff games, while A.J. Brown sits at 10-1 for Philadelphia. A couple other options include Miles Sanders, the dynamic Eagle running back, at 22-1, with long shot wide receiver Devontae Smith of Philly at 25-1.
For the latest odds, injury reports, and betting splits, go to VSiN.com.
Get pro-level insights into the sports betting market with VSiN's betting splits. See what people are betting and keep updated on how the market is reacting. Track up-to-the-minute percentage of bets placed on a matchup. Compare that to the breakdown of money spent on the same matchup to find an edge. For betting splits, live odds, line moves, and power ratings, plus game analysis, become a VSiN Pro subscriber. Head to VSiN.com/subscribe.
To get you ready for the big game, VSiN, the sports betting network, has a limited time offer you can't miss. You can get a 1-month VSiN Pro subscription that takes you through the big game for just $9.99. You'll get our big game betting guide, picks sent to your inbox every morning, pro betting tips, and more, all for less than $10. To become a VSiN Pro subscriber, head to VSiN.com/subscribe. That's VSIN.com/subscribe.
This is VSiN's Final Countdown with Stormy Bonatoni and Matt Brown on VSiN, the sports betting network.
I know that you're out, everybody out there listening, you're looking for a betting edge on the big game. Well, we're here to help you. The VSiN experts have you covered. Become a VSiN Pro subscriber with this introductory offer of just $9.99. VSiN Pro subscribers get access to our daily recap of the top plays made from every VSiN show host and guest. You get betting splits, deep dive betting reports, betting guides for all the big game and tournaments, brackets, best bets, props, the whole shebang. Don't miss out. Again, this is a limited time offer. VSiN.com/subscribe. Just $9.99. VSIN.com/subscribe. Stormy Bonatoni and Matt Brown rolling along with our VSiN big game prop special, diving into just as many prop markets as humanly possible with Super Bowl 57 around the corner. Eagles Chiefs going head to head from Phoenix, Arizona on February 12th. And speaking of head to head, no better time than to get into some head to head props that are out there. Well, of course, there are just your standard passing yards, receiving yards, props. You can also have some of these options of players to go up against one another, and there's spreads involved. Some pretty fun and potentially profitable markets out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you take a look at this one, I mean, I think that the one with Mahomes and Hurts is pretty interesting, right? So Mahomes is a 45.5-yard favorite over Jalen Hurts. It's juiced to minus 115 on both sides, so you will have to bet $115 to win 100 on this one. But if you look at just what the props are out there for both of these guys, just total passing yards in the game, Mahomes is actually like 50 yards more than where Hurts is right now. So there's at least a little bit of a discount just from the raw projection from the number that you can bet just over under. And then further, you can kind of dig into a little bit more of where do you think this game goes? Where do you think the game script goes? Where do you also think the game plan is heading into this? And so for me, I really do like the Mahomes a lot at minus 45.5 over Hurts because, one, I think I have the Eagles winning the game. Two, I have Jalen Hurts and the Eagles coming out with a little bit more run-heavy game plan to start it, at least anyway, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, at least any way to start it. Now, if they get behind, that'll have to change. But I'm assuming that it's not going to. And I also expect it to play fairly close. And as we were talking about with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, this is one of those teams that likes to pass on early downs, and they prefer to, and it's kind of an extension of the run game a lot of times too, close to the line of scrimmage type things, but still passing yards, and counts as passing yards for Patrick Mahomes. And so it's high percentage throws to go along with the fact that they're more prone to throw on early downs. And so again, like, you're getting at least a little bit of a discount from if you're just using the raw numbers here. And then if you want to talk about like my projections as well, I have it about like, again, I have Hurts at like 233 and I have Mahomes at like 285. So I see a little, like, tiniest bit of value in this as well. But that's also in a game script neutral situation. If this were to get out of hand for the Eagles, and that's another way that you can bet this. You know, there's so many different ways that you can bet your convictions in this. And if this were to get out of hand, if you think the Eagles are going to roll this team, like you're the biggest Eagles backer there is on the face of the planet, and you think this Chiefs team is a joke, well, then you're betting Mahomes all day on this because that means Hurts and them are not throwing the ball very much at all in the second half because they're just trying to protect a lead, whereas Mahomes and them are having to throw every single down in order to play catch up. So there's, again, you'd be making a bet on Mahomes while also rooting against him in the grand scheme of things, but it's still a correlated bet.
So then that's probably a similar thought process in the passing touchdowns head to head with Jalen Hurts as well, especially when you take into account that Jalen Hurts of the two is going to be the more mobile guy, the more opportunity to get into the end zone with his legs, which could split a little bit of that number. Only minus 110 for Mahomes to have one more passing touchdown. And I mean, Mahomes this year, all season long, his prop has been set at 2.5, whereas other quarterbacks, we see it always at 1.5. So I think that's just another kind of, I guess, edge a little bit you see here. All he needs is one more.
Absolutely. And the other thing we talked about this team in general is all season long, what we saw with this team is that they will throw the ball from a very short distance, right? I mean, like, they can be at the 1 yard line, at the 2 yard line, and they will still throw the ball. Because it's just, they work up these little gadget plays and these little trick plays and do all these different little things. And again, these little shovel passes count as passes, right? They're not runs. And they do it on purpose because if the guy drops it, it's an incomplete pass as opposed to a fumble. And so Andy Reid is, and Travis Kelce's the master of all this. Mahomes and Kelce are the master of this. And so I really do like that one a lot, actually, in favor of Patrick Mahomes.
Let's go to the receiving side of things a little bit, because the tight ends, it's like my favorite player in this game head to head with your favorite player in this game. And Dallas Goedert is getting 36.5 yards on his side, minus 115 against Travis Kelce in this one. And my only concern with betting Kelce, and that's my concern with betting his over under on his just yardage prop sitting at the 80.5 around there as well, is that for as much as Mahomes loves him and is going to be feeding him the ball, and there have been, guys dinged up in that receiving core, maybe that means the Eagles are going to be paying that much more attention to him, double teaming him more to where he's not making as many catches as he normally does. I'm not necessarily sold on it, but you love Dallas Goedert to begin with, so I have a feeling you're leaning toward taking the extra yards.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of edge in this one, but I would just take the plus 36.5 with Dallas Goedert. The Goedert for me on average, kind of like 52.1 yards is where I have that, and Kelce at like 82.9. And so again, not a big edge there at all, but I do think, like you said, there is a path in which the Eagles come out and say, beat us with all of these other ancillary pieces. You're not beating us with Travis Kelce. I think that's not out of the range of possibilities, right? I mean, if we're talking about potential outcomes for the Eagles winning this game, we might come in here and we're sitting in here on Monday after the Super Bowl going, well, they really shut down Travis Kelce, and that was the whole reason they won the game, And so, I mean, I think that is certainly he's going to be a target no matter what. It's just whether they can actually do it. And so just for the numbers I have, I would take the 36.5 yards with Goedert anyway, and then plus, like you're mentioning, I think there is at least a chance that he becomes an incredibly targeted person from the defensive side.
Well, yeah, and I say all that anti-Travis Kelce. Meanwhile, the last time he was in a Super Bowl had 10 catches on 15 targets and has 7 straight playoff games with 90 or more receiving yards. So shows what I know. As far as the run game goes, head-to-head, Isaiah Pacheco, Miles Sanders. Sanders only laying 7.5 yards. What do you think about it?
Yeah, this one to me would be Sanders all day long or pass. If you look at if you look at Sanders' role, and this is one of the biggest things that we have to look at from this Eagles team that is different from a lot of the teams out there, because they won so many games at margin throughout the course of the season that you can kind of look at just the raw snap data and the raw rushing data and attempts data and things like that, and you can think that this is kind of like almost a committee type situation with them. But when they were playing within one score of a game, so like typically known as game state neutral, Miles Sanders was the dude on the field. Like, he was the guy getting the carries and he was the guy getting the yards. So if you think that this game plays fairly close, which again I do, then you would love Miles Sanders getting the majority of the action here, the majority of the work, and certainly then out-rushing Pacheco by 7.5 yards. And so for me, it would be a Sanders or pass, strictly based off of how I think the game could play out. Now, again, we've seen over the last 2 weeks, we've seen even towards the middle of the season, why Kenneth Gainwell seems like he has such a big role in here, because he has a good mop-up. He's the mop-up duty guy, right? And they've won games by margin so many times. If you believe that's the way it's going to go, well, then you probably don't want to go Miles Sanders. But I do believe this kind of stays within one score, at least the majority of the game.
Well, if you do think he's getting the usage, does that translate to the receiving game as well? Because in the head-to-head with Pacheco, just a half a yard for rushing and receiving combined yards from scrimmage.
This one's where it gets kind of dicey, though, because the thing about the receiving deal, like we were talking about with Mahomes and this offense in general, when we kind of handicap this game, is Mahomes is just such a creator, right? And so the thing that scares me from being able to add in the receiving standpoint from a Pacheco is broken play deal where Mahomes runs around for, what seems like 3 minutes before he ends up throwing the ball, and he finds Pacheco, who's somehow slipped out, and that one play alone goes for 20 some odd yards, and then it totally skews everything. So for me, it's a pass.
All right, let's take a look at the kicking game. Head to head, Chiefs kicker Harrison Butker, 1-on-1 with Eagles kicker Jake Elliott here. And this is another one of those things where it's like, okay, are we thinking this is going to be a field goal game? Or is this going to be an extra point game? Or which side is going to be doing which? Because the edge is only a half a field goal in this one. Who's more likely to have to kick more at length?
Yeah, this one's wild to me. This would be Butker all day long at the plus money. I mean, you are getting plus 140 on Harrison Butker, meaning you're $100. You're winning $140 on top of that. And if we really do go to this, and we think that whenever the Eagles get in the red zone, they're going to score touchdowns. The defense for the Chiefs surrenders the second most touchdown percentage in the NFL when teams get into the red zone. Then, hey, why is Jake Elliott kicking field goals, right? It's Harrison Butker that's going to be kicking the field goals. And if we think about aggressiveness, I think both these coaches are about the same. So I don't really think like, oh, well, Andy Reid's going to forego on these field goal attempts because he's going to be going for it like that much more than Sirianni would with the Eagles, and then Elliott kicks more. So definitely the plus money or pass for me here.
Harrison Butker, 5 of 5 for his field goals so far here in this postseason. Field goals. That was great.
Yeah.
I'm crushing it.
They're goals.
Oh, my goodness. This show has gone by so quickly. We're going to wrap things up with our prop extravaganza next.
There have been a number of Super Bowl oddities over the years, and of course, with the prop market, you can bet on whether they'll happen in this year's game. I'm Ben Wilson at VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Let's dive into some of the crazier props on offer right now. Will a player have at least a 55-yard or more reception? That's plus 250. The longest in Super Bowl history is 85 yards when Jake Delhomme hit Muhsin Muhammad back in Super Bowl 38 for the Panthers. How about either team to have a game-winning walk-off field goal in regulation? That's plus 750. It's only happened twice and by the same kicker with the same team, Adam Vinatieri, for the Patriots in both Super Bowls 36 and 38. Some other ones as we get into the longer shots. How about a player to return a punt or kickoff for a touchdown? That's 14-1. There have been 10 all-time return kickoffs for TDs, the last in 2014 by Seattle's Percy Harvin. Meanwhile, some exotics. Non-quarterback to throw one or more touchdown passes, 22-1. How about an offensive lineman to score a touchdown? That's 35-1.
If you didn't catch the Lombardi line, here's what you missed.
In comes Coach Kyle Shanahan. What to do? I mean, he said, quote, I wish we had a better opportunity yesterday, but this is about moving forward. What would you say to Kyle Shanahan?
I think, Kyle, look, I trust your instincts. You know the quarterback position better than anybody. Ask yourself the question, can we get to where we want to go with Brock Purdy playing quarterback? We may not always have this elite defense. We're going to lose some players to free agency. So we've got to make sure that we have a blue chip player, because every team we get to the Final Four is going to have a blue chip player at the quarterback position, or at least somebody who's going to be challenging for us. We can't always believe our defense is we're going to lose DeMeco Ryans. He's going to become the head coach of the Houston Texans. Who's going to replace him? That's your first challenge. Second challenge is who's going to play quarterback?
The Lombardi Line, weekdays at noon Eastern, weekends at 10 a.m. Eastern on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Did you miss a VSiN show? We have multiple daily and weekly podcasts to keep you up to date on all the latest sports betting action. VSiN Best Bets bring you the highlights from our daily lineup of shows, including Follow the Money and a numbers game. Market Insights with Josh Applebaum gets you ready with the latest lines and action. Beating the Book with Yale Alexander provides the insider view on analytics-based betting strategy from professional bettors, handicappers, and sportsbook operators. Visit vsin.com/podcast today to find all of our podcast options.
Check out the VSiN store for the latest and greatest in sports betting fashion. We have more than 40 shirt designs, including our most popular one, Cash and Tickets is what it's all about. You'll find VSiN shirts and hats for any occasion, and they're all made to order, so you can find the right design, color, and size perfect just for you. You'll find VSiN hats and even VSiN coffee mugs all in our online store. Just go to vsin.com/store and order now. That's vsin.com/store. Nobody gets more betting tips and plays than VSiN Pro subscribers. VSiN's hosts and guests are professional bettors, and now keeping up with their advice is easier than ever. With pro tips, VSiN experts give their best insights on air and online every hour. And only VSiN Pro subscribers get them live and can check out our running list on vsin.com anytime. Check out the new pro tips section of vsin.com and get the best of VSiN in one easy stop. VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Get pro-level insights into the sports betting market with VSiN's betting splits. See what people are betting and keep updated on how the market is reacting. Track up-to-the-minute percentage of bets placed on a matchup. Compare that to the breakdown of money spent on the same matchup to find an edge. For betting splits, live odds, line moves, and power ratings, plus game analysis, become a VSiN Pro subscriber. Head to vsin.com/subscribe.
This is VSiN's Final Countdown with Stormy Bonatoni and Matt Brown on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
The big game is right around the corner, and that means big plans for VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We're going to be in the middle of all the action, broadcasting live from Radio Row in Phoenix, Arizona, coming up this week with athlete and celebrity interviews, plus our experts breaking down the game. You're not going to want to miss any of our coverage. Huddle up and watch Follow the Money, the Lombardi Line, VSiN Primetime, and of course, yours truly and Matt Brown on VSiN Final Countdown, again at Radio Row, starting this coming week. For betting splits, expert picks, and the big game props, make sure you go over to vsin.com. We'll have our schedule there as well. That's VSIN.com. Rolling along here, the VSiN Final Countdown special big game prop edition. And we have gotten into so many markets throughout the course of the show, a few more even to come. And just a reminder, listen, odds and lines are subject to change as we get closer and closer to Super Bowl Sunday. These things are fluctuating all over the place. But anything that we have talked about on the show today and here in a moment are available at DraftKings Sportsbook on some sort of tab. And we'll try to break those down the best that we can for you. But this has been fun so far, going through all the options.
Yes, we've only scratched the surface of the thousands and thousands that are available out there. So be sure if there's something you're thinking of, man, wouldn't it be neat if they probably already did. You just got to find it. You'll find it.
That's what I found kind of researching for this special was, I wonder if this is out there. Yep, it is. So don't worry about it. Somebody else thought about it too. So what we're going to look at now is what we're calling, oh my gosh, specials. They're actually just called Super Bowl specials on DraftKings Sportsbook. So that's the tab that you can find it there. But some pretty unique, longer odd opportunities. Now, the longer the odds means the less likely something is to happen. But a lot of these things have happened before and is kind of interesting. Maybe there's a little bit of fun for a sprinkle type of a bet. Like any non-quarterback to throw a passing touchdown. Will a QB catch a receiving touchdown in this one? Can we get a big man touchdown? That's what I want to know. 35-1 if you think that can happen. Crazier things have happened in the Super Bowl.
It would be one of those deals where, again, we're down at the 4-yard line, and it's one of those moments where they've been sitting on this play all year long, and it strikes that this is the perfect moment to run this play that we've been sitting on for a whole year. I don't expect it to happen, but again, these are two of the more creative, these are two creative coaches.
This isn't the same Philly special team, I know, but like creativity they're known for. We've already seen the Chiefs this year do some wonky formations, trying to have some trickery. Yes, exactly.
And whatever and all that. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no doubt that Patrick Mahomes has already presented like a handful of plays to Andy Reid already this week, and Andy Reid's going, dude, come on, man. We're not doing this. It's a Super Bowl. What are you talking about? It's not happening. But maybe one of them, he looked at it and goes, oh, maybe we can work with this one. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. Probably not one that's going to make my account. But the one a little bit further down here, the any player to have a 55-plus yard reception at plus 250 is, I think, at least minimally interesting because we do have, of course, we know with Mahomes who will take some shots. And weirdly enough, if you go back and look, Jalen Hurts, even though the catch percentage on them have not been incredibly high, they take some shots down the field, right? It's just, again, they don't complete them as much as maybe Mahomes and his guys do, and doesn't feel like that's the same case. But he certainly has some of these guys that can be burners, certainly can be some dudes that can get you some yak if you need it to kind of get there to that 55 plus. And so I actually think that one's fairly interesting.
Also, either team to kick a game-winning field goal at the end of regulation. For conference championship week, it was plus 450 because there's 2 games, so it's more likelihood that it could happen. And obviously, we did see that happen in the Chiefs' win over the Bengals. Plus 750 for there to be a walk-off field goal in regulation for this game. There's also odds out there for will this game go to overtime. Some of the scoring specials that are interesting. Any team, will they score 3 times unanswered? Minus 175 for the yes, so they feel that's very easily potential.
So this is one of the most popular bet props every single year for the Super Bowl, and everyone bets the no. And what you forget about is the wraparound. And it is why it seems unfathomable that how can a team score 3 times in a row? And basically when this goes against you, is if it doesn't go against you just traditionally throughout the course of the game, there's 2 scores before halftime. The team that scores at the end of halftime gets the ball back after half. And then you get the third score after half. And so everyone loves betting the no. It happens way more than you think on all that. I get it. It's not, you probably don't want to lay a minus 175 on the yes, but just know it happens fairly often.
Yeah, a little juicy. Bet $175 to win 100. Similarly, for the game to be tied again after 0-0, minus 135 to the yes. I like the idea of a successful 2-point plus 255 on that one. 2 coaches that can be aggressive. We know especially Nick Sirianni has proven to do that a lot this year.
You could almost bet a correlated play with that and bet on a missed extra point and also either a successful 2-point conversion, because you would think that one team would have to miss an extra point in order to want to go for a 2-point conversion or something. So you could they're not directly correlated, but they're at least mildly correlated.
Absolutely. And hey, correlation, what a perfect word to get to our pro tip of the hour. We do one of these every single hour on VSiN, the sports betting network, VSiN.com. You can sort through these by sport and by show. Again, every single hour, we're having different tips out there to try to make you a more informed sports bettor. Make sure your props correlate with how the game's going to go. If you think it's going to be a high-scoring game, maybe don't bet a bunch of unders, or just, think things through, but maybe not too much, I guess, to where all of your bets are like eggs in one basket. But still, correlated plays, I think, are a very strategic way to go in these
Right,
markets.
Absolutely. If you're sitting there and you're betting on one of the alt passing totals for Patrick Mahomes at 325 plus yards, but then you're betting his under on passing touchdowns, you're really kind of betting against your bet there. You're betting against yourself, because likely if he's going to throw for 325 plus, a couple of them are probably going to go for touchdowns, right? Because you're assuming that one of those is like a long play. And so there's just ways that you can think this through to say, if this happens is this at least likely to happen? And then that way you can at least go through and listen, there have been some Super Bowls where you go through and the story you tell yourself just doesn't come to fruition, and you look down and you didn't win a lot of bets. But there's also some times where you think the game is going to go a certain way, and it does, and you look down and it's just green, 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 green all the way down because the story you told yourself actually played out. And you can get that, extra money in the account through the prop bets as
Absolutely. Again, VSiN.com/subscribe for all of those pro tips every single day, which also just a good reminder in case you missed any of the show today. We went through a ton of different prop markets for the Super Bowl. This show is going to be available in full if you are a subscriber to watch online, or of course the VSiN Best Bets podcast. You can download it wherever you get your podcast. These are uploaded pretty immediately after the show every single day. Now it's time for everyone's favorite part, a little bit of a recap of some of our picks that we do have in the account, or, even too, if there's some other things that you're considering, think are worthwhile in the prop market. Matt, we'll start with you. What's your favorite prop in the account?
Yeah, I bet pretty early on Travis Kelce to go over on his receiving yards. And I think that there is, again, we have, as we continue to break this game down, and it's still, a lot of time before kickoff, there is a chance in which maybe we talk ourselves into, they're going to put so much defensive attention on Travis Kelce that it's not going to work out. But I'm just going with what I've seen and what I kind of feel like needs to be the path for victory for the Chiefs. And now it might not get there, but it's not going to be for lack of trying. And if you have a couple of beat up receivers and they're going to play, they're not going to be 100%. There is I think a bigger than average chance for Patrick Mahomes to overly target Travis Kelce. Now, again, does that turn into yardage? Does that turn into receptions? Not always. But I do think that there will be a lot of focus on him getting to his guy who, again, one, they just know each other so incredibly well, and two, just has a nose for the end zone. So really do like him on the over there. Patrick Mahomes, that minus 45.5 yards versus Hurts. I really do like that minus 45.5 passing yards versus Jalen Hurts because I think they throw at a higher volume as it is anyway, and I like the Eagles, and if the Eagles are going to win the game, they're likely going to throw the ball a little bit less. And then Quez Watkins under 1.5 receptions. He's a different player when Dallas Goedert is on the field. When he was off the field, he was getting nearly 5 targets a game. When Dallas Goedert's back on the field, it's 1.9 targets per game, and you need 2 catches in order for this to pay. He's getting fewer targets than that. It's just, again, the season averages can skew these props sometimes.
Well, to your point on Travis Kelce, I know it's juicy at minus 130, but I really do see him getting in the end zone in this game. Mahomes and Travis Kelce have connected for 13 postseason touchdowns together. He's his go-to guy in the red zone, especially. So I really see that being something that's happened. He's also already got 3 touchdowns this postseason. My favorite prop, though, that I have in pocket, Jalen Hurts to throw a touchdown in the first quarter, yes, is plus 215. The Eagles have scored a league-high 62 points on opening drives to start the regular season, so they get on the board fast and furious, and Jalen Hurts has been a big part of that, not only on opening drives, but in the first quarter as a whole. An NFL best 15 passing touchdowns in the first quarter, also led the league in first quarter QBR, 3rd in first quarter yards, and 9th in completion percentage in the first quarter. I really feel like that's good value for something that he's done more often than not, and already in this postseason, 1 in 2 of the games to this point. So I'm taking the plus money that he'll get there. I'm also going with history on the opening kickoff. Touchback no at plus 140. That is a wrap for our big game prop extravaganza. More VSiN coming up after this.
Before you place your next bet, visit VSiN.com for all the latest data and powerful betting tools. Start with our live odds, team comparisons, and previews for every game on the schedule. Then dive deeper with live tracking of betting trends and line movements. And don't miss our unique tools, including odds comparisons from sportsbooks across the country, prop bet search engine, and custom parlay calculator. Everything you need to increase your betting knowledge and confidence is at your fingertips. Visit VSiN.com today.